You know, we've been kind of a bit all over the place in this Tour of Kanto series. This series was never anything I planned out or intended to make multiple episodes of, but it just kinda happened. It was originally a one-off Halloween special when I talked about Lavender Town. But here I am, now 10 videos in, and they've really been a lot of fun to research and talk about. We've gone toward the end of the game in Cinnabar Island, we've gone to near the very beginning with Viridian Forest and Mount Moon. But I say we need to turn that dial all the way to the left, I guess. Let's go to the very beginning, like to the point of going to Toys R Us to get that brand new game in 1998 and slapping it right into your Game Boy Pocket. And honestly, I did kind of already talk about the very beginning here in my Pokemon Red and Blue video for the retrospective, but you know, I'm older now and these tour videos are a bit different. And even though this is episode 11, if you are new here, I basically pick a place of interest in the Kanto region and look at all aspects of it as if you were playing the game for the first time. We look at the wild Pokemon found there, what items you can find, what trainers or NPCs say, how it's portrayed in later games, the anime, the manga, the TCG, all that good stuff. So I say it's time we go all the way back.
We have to go back!
It's September of 1998. You are currently sitting in the backseat of your parents' car and are headed to Toys R Us to pick up a new game for your birthday. The radio is full of the big hits at the time like Aerosmith's I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, Crush by Jennifer Page, and of course, You're Still the One by Shania Twain. The Big Three. And after 2.5 hours of deliberating on which game to choose, you decide to try out this Pokemon thing. There were two versions available, Red, which has a giant orange dragon thing with fire on its tail, or Blue, which has a giant blue turtle with cannons in its shell. Very cool. You turn it on to see some horned creature about to do battle with some kind of purple gremlin thing, and are then greeted by a professor of scientific research who goes by the name of Oak. He tells you that this horned thing is called a Pokemon. He then explains that Pokemon are essentially used for 3 options. Being kept as pets, cockfighting, or the nerd approach, studying them. He then asks what name you go by, and then you have to remind him of what his grandson's name is. Oh, so he's one of those grandpas, I guess. But based on the default names given, you are taking on the role of an 11-year-old boy named Red, alongside your rival grandson named Blue. But hey, a world of dreams and adventures with Pokemon awaits, so let's go! You are then shrunk down to the size you need to be on the overworld and are transported right into a bedroom complete with a Super Nintendo, a TV, and a PC. I feel like Red is a Mega Man X kind of guy, so that's what I imagine is in the SNES. If you check your PC, you can also withdraw a potion out of it. How you are taking a physical potion out of a digital PC, well, I don't know. But just go with it. When you go downstairs, you see your mom sitting at the table and a TV at the back wall. It says there's a movie on TV. 4 boys are walking on railroad tracks. And, well, this is heavily implied that she's watching the movie Stand By Me. That's not definitively what she's watching, but come on, what else could it be? I like to think that Red's mom is a big Stephen King buff. If only we could see what all these books are to the left. And your mom apparently takes life advice from the media because she says all boys leave home someday and that it said so on TV. So she's either getting this from Stand By Me or like Fox News or something. She then tells you that the strange old man who lives next door was looking for you, so the only safe and logical thing to do is send her 11-year-old child over to his lab. After exiting your house, you notice that this entire town consists of a total of 3 buildings, and is called Pallet Town, where shades of your journey await. There exists your house, Professor Oak's lab, and then another house. Population, 8, at least according to Bulbapedia. There are 2 folks meandering around too, but you have no idea where they live. Spoiler alert, but they spend the rest of the game wandering around this town that contains only 3 buildings, I'm assuming none of which are their homes, for the rest of eternity. They live in limbo. One tells you they are raising Pokemon to be strong in order to protect them. Great, so even this town with 3 houses has a high crime rate. The other person tells you that you can now store and recall items and Pokemon as data in a PC. Ah, so now it makes sense why you were able to lift a potion right out of it. It becomes virtual data. If you enter Professor Oak's lab, there are a couple scientists around, as well as his grandson. Apparently Oak is held in high regard among Pokemon trainers, so okay, maybe he is trustworthy after all. Blue tells you that Gramps isn't around, and you can see a computer and a table with 3 balls on it. The computer notifies you about something called a Pokemon League that is meant for elite trainers. But yeah, he's not even here, so now what? Entering the 3rd building allows you to meet Blue's sister, who just tells you that Blue is at the lab. It's never clear who or where their parents are, though. Are Blue and his sister orphans? Does Professor Oak live in this house and then go to work in the lab? Do you have a father too? So many questions on the dynamics of Pallet Town residents. But it's time to go find the missing professor, and there's only one way to go, straight into the tall grass. But you don't make it too far until Professor Oak stops you to tell you that it's unsafe to go out there without a Pokemon to protect you, which raises even more questions. Have you never gone north of your house before in all of your 11 years being alive because you don't have a Pokemon? How do you and your mother get groceries, or anything at all? You managed to get a Super Nintendo, TV, and computer somehow. But yes, I know, it's just to notify you, the player, that wild Pokemon live in tall grass. But still, it's a weird way to convey this info. So once Oak takes you back to his lab, he tells you and Blue that he used to be a serious trainer, but now in his old age, he only has 3 Pokemon left. Did he give the others away? Did they die? Who knows, but he is now graciously offering the 2 of you 1 each. This here is one of the most infamous decisions in all of gaming. The original 3 starter Pokemon options. At number 1, Bulbasaur is the grass poison type seed Pokemon. A strange seed was planted on its back at birth. The plant sprouts and grows with this Pokemon. And I never really thought about that until right now. Did somebody plant a strange seed on its back? It surely seems so. So if they didn't do it, would it just grow up to be a normal frog-looking thing? Not counting trading, this is the only way you can get Bulbasaur in the entire game, so in a way, this Pokedex entry sort of implies that somebody planted a strange seed on this exact Bulbasaur. Sure, we all know now that every Bulbasaur looks this way, but if you just base your knowledge on what's portrayed here, it's a bit strange sounding. And unlike the other 2 options, which I'll go over in a sec, Bulbasaur has the unique characteristic of being 2 types, while the other 2 are monotype. This makes Bulbasaur be able to resist more types, but at the cost of being weak to more too. In these original games, Bulbasaur is weak to Flying, Fire, Psychic, Ice, and 4 times weak to Bug. Its best stat is Special, with everything else being fairly even. Bulbasaur is considered to be Easy Mode, due to it being effective against the first 2 gyms. Even though it's grass poison, Bulbasaur is the grass representative here, setting the benchmark for all future starting Pokemon. In all 9 current generations of mainline Pokemon games, there is always the decision of grass, fire, and water, and it all started right here. I and many others love Bulbasaur though, it's great. It was also who I went with the first time I ever played the blue version, so my entire Pokemon journey kicked off with this very Pokemon. Bulbasaur evolves into Ivysaur at 16 and then Venusaur at 32. Charmander is the pure fire type lizard Pokemon. Obviously prefers hot places. I mean, obviously. When it rains, steam is said to spout from the tip of its tail. The OG fire type, Charmander has always been my least favorite of the original 3, but it's still a great Pokemon. An orange lizard guy with fire on its tail, I mean that's a cool design. Charmander's best stats are speed and attack, with HP being its worst, and is considered to be hard mode due to the difficulty you may have in beating the first 2 gyms. Charmander evolves into Charmeleon at 16 and then Charizard at 36. Squirtle is the pure water type tiny turtle Pokemon. After birth, its back swells and hardens into a shell, powerfully sprays foam from its mouth. That dex entry was always kinda gross sounding to me, I don't know. Design-wise, it's probably the least unique of the 3 though. Bulbasaur has the bulb on its back, Charmander has the flame on its tail, and Squirtle is kinda just a blue turtle. But even still, Squirtle is still pretty great. I've probably taken Squirtle the most in my Kanto playthroughs, but mostly because of its final form. Squirtle's best stat is defense, with speed being its worst. It evolves into Wartortle at 16 and then Blastoise at 36. Squirtle is considered to be medium mode. And yeah, these 3 are meant to have a sort of rock, paper, scissors dynamic. Bulbasaur is weak to Charmander, who is weak to Squirtle, who is weak to Bulbasaur. But I say sort of because any of them can beat the others at any time. It's not a given. In fact, this is even tested out the very second after you make your decision. Your rival will always take the one that is super effective over yours, and you immediately engage in a Pokemon battle to try and overcome the rock, paper, scissors odds. This is meant to teach you how Pokemon battles work, and to keep a long story short, too late, and spare you the semantics of explaining how Pokemon battles work, I'll try to keep this focused on Pallet Town and Route 1. Once you either win or lose here, Blue just kinda leaves, and you're left to go about your journey. Kinda. First, your mom tells you to take care now.
Take care! Now!
Because you are interrupting her favorite part of Stand By Me. But the only way to go now is north to Route 1, the very first area in the game that contains wild Pokemon to fight. And understandably, there's not a whole lot going on here. It's meant to teach you a couple things here though. Wild Pokemon will jump at you at random when you enter tall grass, and you will engage in a battle, and also that this route is a hill by showing you how ledges work. You can jump down off of ledges, but not up them. Makes sense. One person walking around will tell you of this as well. The other person here is an employee of the Pokemon Mart, and he gives you a free sample of a potion, so that's nice of him. But really, that's it. There are no other items to get, no trainers around, just 2 people here to speak with, ledges to jump down from, or wild Pokemon to find in the grass. And this route only has 2 Pokemon options, each with a 50% rate. Pidgey is the normal flying type tiny bird Pokemon, a common sight in forests and woods. It flaps its wings at ground level to kick up blinding sand. And even though you can't actually catch them yet, Pidgey may very well be many people's first ever caught Pokemon. You get your starter, of course, but Pidgey's job is to act as one of the first wild Pokemon you'll ever encounter. And it's a grassy hill, so a tiny bird being here seems pretty par for the course. And I actually do really like Pidgey's design. It's probably my second favorite of all the early game birds. The brown and cream color scheme, the black around its eyes, the stern look. It's just a solid looking standard bird Pokemon. Pidgey are very common throughout the game though, also found on 13 other routes. Its best stat is speed, with its worst being special. It evolves into Pidgeotto at 18, and then Pidgeot at 36. And the other wild option here is a nice counterpart to a tiny bird being on a grassy hill, a rat. Rattata is the pure normal type rat Pokemon. It bites anything when it attacks. Small and very quick, it is a common sight in many places. And that is pretty true, as it's found in 7 different routes throughout the game, mostly early on. And also like with Pidgey, it's just a fine looking early game rat. A 1 foot tall 7-pound purple rat with red eyes and large teeth. That works for me. Rats are very common enemies you fight in RPGs to gain experience, and really it's no different here. You can fight them to make them faint, or catch one to use for your team, or continuously run from them. It's all up to you. Rattata's best stat is easily speed, with special being its worst. It evolves into Raticate at level 20. And that is the entirety of Route 1. Once you reach the end, you arrive at Viridian City, where you pick up a package to bring to Professor Oak. In doing so, you have to trek on through Route 1 yet again. Once you give Oak the parcel, he tasks you and Blue with filling out the pokedex to fulfill his dream for him. By obtaining a pokedex, you are now able to purchase Pokeballs from the Mart back in Viridian City, so you have to travel through Route 1 for the 3rd time now. Before you leave though, Blue says he's going to grab a town map from his sister and that he will tell her not to lend you one. Bro is an absolute jokester, I tell you. So then you go back through Route 1 to Viridian City and the tutorial stage is complete. I feel like almost every Pokemon game has these long, drawn-out tutorial stages of the games that are notoriously unskippable. Most people know exactly how these games work all too well by now, but this is actually where it all started. The one game that probably needed some sort of tutorial. It's kind of funny that doing this Oak's parcel thing by going through Route 1 3 times used to feel like it took a long time. But compared to the modern games, this is absolutely nothing. You can breeze through it in just a few minutes really. Pallet Town and Route 1 are the most basic of basic places in the game, and they are not trying to hide that fact. It shows you where you live, where your rival lives, where the professor's lab is, and then it shows you that Pokemon live in tall grass to the north. Done and done, very little nonsense. But that's actually not it for Pallet Town. Bonus round! You can't do anything with it until way later, but there are actually some wild Pokemon found here in the water if you choose to fish. Old rod for Magikarp, good rod for Goldeen and Poliwag. It's always this, and I always point this out that it's always this. So it's all about the super rod catches. And well, there are two options with a 50-50 rate. Poliwag and Tentacool. As I said, Poliwag is always an option with the good rod, but this is actually one of 3 places in the game to catch them with a super rod. But it's only slightly better to do so, as they will be level 15 instead of 10 with the good rod. And Tentacool is also very easy to find, and I just talked about it in my last Cycling Road video. You can surf here of course, but I guess you can't find anything until you enter Route 21? I actually didn't realize this until studying up for this video. Pallet Town doesn't have surf or grass encounters in red and blue, even though the map has tall grass and water. Interesting. Pallet Town in the yellow version is very much unchanged, with one major difference, since it's the yellow version. You are no longer given the option of Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle, but are forced to take a Pikachu, as it is the special Pikachu edition. This Pikachu actually attacks you in the wild as you enter the tall grass to the north right away, and Professor Oak catches it. Then, after going to the lab, there is 1 ball on the table instead of 3, and right before you go to take the Pokemon that Oak is giving you, Blue pushes you out of the way to take it instead, in which Oak hands you the Pikachu. And this Pokemon that you were supposed to get? Eevee. I think this is a fun change, as you can eventually acquire Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle through other means later on. Fishing here is mostly the same, except Poliwag was switched out as a Super Rod catch for Staryu. 60% of the time you'll find Staryu, and Tentacool was made to be the rare catch at 40%. As for Route 1, yeah, not much different here at all except for the rates. Instead of a split 50-50, Pidgey was up to 70% and could be upwards of level 7 instead of maxed out at 5. Rattata can be the same levels, but more rare at only 30%. In the Fire Red and Leaf Green remakes, the Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle decision makes its return, of course. Also, the SNES in your bedroom is replaced by an NES. Some could view that as a downgrade. Also, since you can choose between a boy or a girl, Stand By Me on the TV is replaced by The Wizard of Oz if you choose a girl. That's not a Stephen King story? Also, your rival's sister, who you find out is actually named Daisy, will later groom your lead Pokemon to increase its friendship. Fun fact, our dog is named Daisy. Here she is. But fishing here later in the game weirdly has a lot of variety, and it even depends on your version. The old rod stays only Magikarp, nothing new there. The good rod now though has you find Magikarp, Horsey, and Krabby. Krabby is more common in Leaf Green, Horsey in Fire Red. But the super rod though, ooh boy. The most common encounters in Fire Red are Shelter and Horsey at 40% each. Gyarados is the next most common encounter at 15%, which is weird. Yet you can see a 21-foot Gyarados in the water right out of your bedroom window in this quaint little town. Great. At a small 4% rate, you can find Horsey's evolved form of Seadra, and then the rare 1% encounter is Psyduck. The Leaf Green equivalents are Krabby and Staryu at 40%, Gyarados at 15%, Kingler at 4%, and then Slowpoke at 1%. Kinda cool that going all the way back to the beginning allows you to find strong Pokemon like Gyarados, Seadra, and Kingler. They were right there this whole time. And you can now actually find some in the wild while surfing here on that little patch before it becomes Route 21. And yeah, it's just Tentacool every time. But a huge level range of 5 to 40. Pallet Town goes hard in these remakes. Route 1 though, yeah, still just Pidgey and Rattata back at 50% each. It is almost exactly the same as in Gen 1 in every way. But the remakes of Yellow with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, Pallet Town is naturally more akin to Yellow. The Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle decision is now replaced by Pikachu or Eevee, depending on which version you purchased, instead of being forced to take Pikachu and your rival get an Eevee. This is one instance where I do prefer this over how it's done in Yellow. I certainly don't hate the Let's Go games, but every time I make these tour videos, they tend to have aspects that I simply prefer how they were done in Gen 1. But yeah, you make your choice between Pikachu or Eevee while you're still in Best Buy or whatever. Best Buy? Sure, we'll go with that. And other than some story beats here and there to show you the graphical capabilities of Pokemon on the Switch, not too much is different. You do have a Nintendo Switch in your bedroom now, and actually there are no wild encounters. This time I guess the water falls solely on Route 21. As for Route 1, grass encounters actually aren't only Pidgey and Rattata. They're both still here of course, but now you can find some version exclusives here. Yeah, right off the bat on Route 1. In Let's Go Pikachu, you can find Oddish here 30% of the time, and Bellsprout in Let's Go Eevee. Both of these are also encounters on Route 2 in Viridian Forest right nearby, but it's cool that they go as far as Route 1 in these games too. And like with every route in the game, you can find wild ones in the air after you become the champion. Pidgey, Pidgeotto, Pidgeot, Charizard, Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, and Dragonite, all of which are definitely not exclusive to Route 1. Although I can't help but find it funny that thinking of you beginning your journey and battling against level 3 Pidgeys while the legendary Bird of Thunder flies right above your head. Ah, Route 1. And what's this? There's actually one trainer here too, but only after you deliver Oak's parcel. Youngster Ronnie likes to hang out here with his level 3 Rattata to prove that trainers can be on Route 1. What a twist. But of course, we can't leave out the post-game Kanto visits in Gen 2 and 4 taking place 3 years after Red's journey. And Pallet Town looks exactly the same, which is actually kinda rare for Gold and Silver. So many places in Kanto look different, but not this place. Look at this side by side, it's uncanny. So in Gold and Silver, since you don't actually play as Red, you can still go visit his mother in Pallet Town. She's worried about Red and hasn't heard from him in a while. She assumes he's doing fine though. Yo, he's only 14. It's not like he's an adult living on its own. Maybe, I don't know, try and find him? Ah, well, at least you can go play Blast Core on the Nintendo 64 in his room. Heck yeah. But yeah, where is Red then? Daisy Oak will once again groom your Pokemon, and you can go speak with Professor Oak, who pretty much tells you to go see him once you get all of the Kanto gym badges. In doing so, he allows you access to the mysterious Mount Silver near the Indigo Plateau. And hey, look at that! More water encounters. Surfing is here and it's back to being just Tentacool. But the old rod is not only Magikarp this time, but Magikarp and, well, Tentacool. Even the good rod has 4 encounters though, which is pretty cool. 2 of them are boring old Magikarp and Tentacool, 35% each, and then the rare encounter here is Shelter, 10% of the time. But hey, there's one new one here for me to talk about. 20% of the time you'll find Chinchou, the water electric type angler Pokemon. On the dark ocean floor, its only means of communication is its constantly flashing lights. I think Chinchou is pretty cool though, and I'm a fan of the water electric typing. It's very common when fishing throughout Gold and Silver though, so it being in Pallet Town isn't anything too special. Chinchou's best stat is HP, with its worst being attack and defense. It evolves into Lantern at level 27. As for the Super Rod, there are also 4 encounters. Chinchou is now the most common at 40%, Shelter at 30%, Tentacruel at 20%, and the rare find here is actually Lantern at 10%. Lantern is the water electric type light Pokemon. It blinds prey with an intense burst of light, then swallows the immobilized prey in a single gulp. And I don't know, I kinda prefer Chinchou's design to Lantern's. Lantern is fine, but I think Chinchou has a lot more personality. I like the concept of the bright light though. Lantern is also best with HP, worst with attack and defense. As for Route 1, well, you can now find a Bitterberry here, so that's something. Also, 2 trainers hang out here, Schoolboy Danny and cool trainer Quinn, rocking some Pokemon like Jinx, Electabuzz, Magmar, Ivysaur, and Starmie. Yeah, why are these 2 hanging out on Route 1 of all places? The wild encounters here bring back the OGs of Pidgey and Rattata, as it should. They define Route 1. But hey, nice, we have a few Johto boys hanging out here now too. You can now find the Johto counterpart to Rattata of Sentret, the pure normal type scout Pokemon, as well as its evolved form Furret, the pure normal type long body Pokemon. The other occurrence at night is Hoot Hoot, the normal flying type owl Pokemon. And yeah, these all make sense for a Gen 1 sequel. These common early route Johto Pokemon migrated to the early routes of Kanto now. Also, in a cool little twist, you can find a level 6 Raticate here as a rare night encounter only on the Crystal version. As for Heart Gold and Soul Silver, instead of Blast Core, you can now go play Mario and Sonic in the Olympic Winter Games on Red's Nintendo Wii, so that's cool. He keeps updating that home console. Just about everything else here is the same as in Gen 2 though. Surfing and fishing encounters are all the same, but you can now find wild Pokemon in Pallet Town while headbutting, which is new. Hoot Hoot, Pineco, Wurmple, Leddyba, and Spinarak. For Route 1, it's also about the same as in Gen 2. Pidgey, Rattata, Sentret, Furret, and Hoot Hoot. No more Raticate, who is only here in Pokemon Crystal. I bet nobody in the world has ever utilized the Crystal-only post-game rare night encounter of the level 6 Route 1 Raticate. Comment below if you have or haven't. The Headbutt Pokemon are also the same as in Pallet Town. Hoot Hoot, Pineco, Wurmple, Leddyba, and Spinarak. Poochyena can swarm here, and then with the Hoenn and Sinnoh sounds you can find Plusle, Minun, and Shinx. Yeah, nothing here really emblematic of Route 1, but still worth mentioning. And there are now 4 trainers hanging out here. Whoa, slow down now. 2 school kids and 2 ace trainers. And that about does it for the very first 2 areas in a Kanto playthrough. They really are just simple tutorial levels to show you what kind of game this is, at least in Gens 1, 3, and 7. Again, these areas are post-game places in Gens 2 and 4, so they now have a way different function in those games. But in terms of Gen 1 specifically, Pallet Town is the very first place you ever go to, and Route 1 is the very first place you can experience wild encounters. So as simple and bare bones as they are still very important and memorable places. I mean, I just spent 8 pages talking about them already, so there was even more to say than I thought. Depending on your age, I'm sure most people's very first Pokemon came from right here. I know this was the case for me with my Bulbasaur. Pokemon Yellow was the first Pokemon game I ever owned myself, so this was even the case with the Pikachu that you were given. They may not be very exciting places to be in, but they function as places to get you excited for everything that's about to happen in your journey. But ooh boy, there is still a bit to say here, as you can tell by the remaining time on the video. We still gotta talk about the side games, the anime, and the manga, so strap on in for the remainder. As for the side games, well, we're pretty much back to just having to talk about our old friend, Pokemon Pinball. And as usual, there is very little to say about it. Pallet Town is one of the locations you can go to where you can find quite a variety of Pokemon actually. Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, Rattata, Nidoran male, Poliwag, Tentacool, and Tangela. I like that they incorporated the fishing and surfing encounters of the water types, and Tangela being here is a nod to it being a wild encounter on the small patch of grass just south of Pallet Town on Route 21. And really, that's about it for the side games. I guess you can see Professor Oak's lab in like Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Stadium, but do these count? Bulbapedia also mentions something about Mindscapes for Red and Lane in Pokemon Masters EX, and I'll be honest, I have no idea what this is. But I'll mention it here for all of those PMEX fans out there. So here's a first. As far as the anime goes, I really gotta pick and choose my battles here. Pallet Town actually appears quite a bit throughout the series, whether it be Ash traveling back home or being on a call with his mom or Professor Oak or whatever. But the one I'm choosing to focus on is of course the very first episode, Pokemon I Choose You. The episode/series opens up with 10-year-old Ash Ketchum watching a Pokemon League battle on TV, replicating the battle scene when you turn on your red or blue game of Gengar vs Nidorino. These two are the real OG rivals of Pokemon, although Gengar should absolutely mop the floor with Nidorino every time. But still, that's the beauty of Pokemon. But you see, Ash is about to be granted his Pokemon license the following morning and dreams about being the very best, like no one ever was. But to catch them is his real test, so he goes to sleep excited about his big day. But in a dream, Ash accidentally breaks his alarm clock in his sleep and he oversleeps, potentially missing his chance to get his first Pokemon from Professor Oak. He runs to his lab and ultimately decides to go with Squirtle, but he is too late. Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle have all been claimed by other trainers, including the ever so cocky Gary Oak, Professor Oak's grandson. But Oak tells Ash that he does actually have one more option, and at this point Ash will take literally any Pokemon he can get. Inside is a yellow electric mouse, a Pikachu. Ash says he loves it even more than the other choices though, and immediately picks it up to hug it, resulting in this Pikachu shocking him with electricity. After saying goodbye to his mom, Ash tries to put Pikachu back into its Pokeball, but Pikachu isn't having any of that. After his mom calls Pikachu weird, Pikachu shocks the entire crowd. Wow, dude, this Pikachu sucks. As a safety measure, Ash dons some rubber gloves to protect him from the electricity as the two embark on their journey across Route 1, with Pikachu being forcefully dragged by a leash. Ash tries to connect with Pikachu, but he is not having any of that either. Ash finds a wild Pidgey and wants to catch it, but Pikachu refuses to battle. Ash fails in catching it and even gets attacked by the Pidgey before it flies away. A wild Rattata then starts ruffling through Ash's bag before he chases it away, so he at least got to see the two Route 1 Pokemon here. In frustration at everything going on, he throws a rock at some Pidgey, so now us viewers say he deserves what's coming to him. Shocking some birds with electricity is fine, but throwing rocks at poor animals? We hate you now, Ash. However, it wasn't a Pidgey that he hit, but a more temperamental Spearow. In retaliation, Spearow goes to attack Ash, but heads for Pikachu instead. Pikachu defends itself with Thunder Shock, but this causes Spearow to let out a cry to cause a very large Spearow flock to chase them down. The two take off running, and shout out to the Sandshrew sighting, and Pikachu tires out quickly. Ash picks him up as the two jump into a river to get away from the flock. At the bottom, a girl is there fishing in the river, and she ends up catching the two of them on her fishing pole. She berates Ash for letting his Pokemon get in a terrible condition and tells him he needs to get to the Pokemon Center quick. Ash notices the Spearow flock approaching, so he steals the girl's bike to get Pikachu to safety, potentially putting her in danger of being killed by birds. A thunderstorm starts and the Spearow start to attack Ash as he crashes to the ground, and things could not be going worse for this new Pokemon trainer. But the determination springs awake as he decides to stand up to protect Pikachu from the flock, even with the two of them not getting along whatsoever. He tells Pikachu to get into its Pokeball, but realizing Ash is willing to endure all of the pain to protect it, Pikachu has a change of heart and he uses its last bit of energy to jump in front of Ash, to be struck by lightning and unleash a massive electric attack on the surrounding area, knocking everybody out. After the storm subsides and having no energy left, the two of them lay there and realize a bond has been formed. Ash then sees a huge unknown bird fly overhead that even his Pokedex can't identify. They notice Viridian City close by, so Ash picks up Pikachu to carry him to the Pokemon Center. Pikachu briefly licks Ash's face as the episode ends. Yeah, what a start to the series. Everybody now knows the inseparable bond that Ash and Pikachu have, as Pikachu is one of the most well-known video game characters of all time. So it's really cool to take things all the way back to the beginning to show almost an entire episode where Pikachu absolutely detests Ash in every way. From Pikachu's perspective, I mean, he's kept in a Pokeball that he hates being in, and is then forced to be the partner for this inexperienced 10-year-old boy who doesn't know what he's doing at all. Pikachu knows his electricity abilities are stronger than Ash will ever be, so why should he listen to this whiny kid? But as the episode shows, even when absolutely nothing is going right for Ash, he is still willing to endure even more pain and failure just to protect his new Pokemon that hates him. He has determination, and it's a pretty touching moment when Pikachu realizes this. It's a pretty solid first episode, and you get to see a bunch of Pokemon in anime form for the first time, either in the background or on TV, including the two Route 1 Pokemon of Pidgey and Rattata. If I have any nitpick, I do kinda wish that it was a flock of Pidgey that attacked them instead of Spearow, only in the game sense that Spearow are not found here. But it works well enough for the show because Spearow are much more scrappy than Pidgey are. I think Pidgey still look pretty angry though. But of course, the main Pokemon focus here is Pikachu, as it should be. He's a full-on main character for the entire duration of the series. You also get to see Misty for the first time as Ash steals her bike. And for some random trivia, this is the only episode in the original series for two things happening. It's the only time you ever see Pikachu in a Pokeball, and it's also the only time you never see Jessie, James, and Meowth. Crazy, right? Team Rocket isn't even known until the second episode. But yeah, it's a pretty great episode actually. And again, Pallet Town is shown quite a few times beyond this point, so I think this should be the only episode I go in detail on. After getting the 8 gym badges, Ash and company spend a bit of time in Pallet Town while Ash plans to train for the Pokemon League. Ash's mom eventually gets a Mr. Mime for a housekeeper, which is worth noting too. She thinks Pikachu not wanting to be confined inside of a Pokeball is weird. She gets a creepy humanoid mime thing to live with her and be her maid. Yeah, who's actually the weird one? And holy Murkrow, I actually get to say something about Pokemon Origins that's not about a place summed up in the episode for like 2.5 seconds. File 1 Red is, in a way, a bit of a remake of Pokemon I Choose You, which makes sense because it's an adaptation of the game. Except this follows the story of a boy named Red and not Ash. He is set to go to Professor Oak to get his first Pokemon along with Oak's grandson, Blue. And since Red is actually on time, he gets to choose from the original 3 and goes with Charmander because his father named him Red, representing fire. Does that mean us choosing Charmander is considered canon now? Blue chooses Squirtle because fire is weak to water, but he refuses to battle Red because he's too much of a novice. The other big difference here between this and the original anime is that Red is set to go on his Pokemon journey to fulfill Professor Oak's request to complete the Pokedex because Oak is too old to do all the traveling himself. Ash wants to be the best Pokemon trainer of all time, and Red just simply wants to finish the Pokedex. Red heads out on Route 1 to begin his journey and catch some Pokemon. He fails in catching a Pidgey, but does catch a Rattata, then a Spearow, a Caterpie, and a Pidgey. He also battles a youngster who has a Nidoran female, and Red tries to steal it from him, but a force field blocks it. The youngster accuses him of being a thief, and yeah, why did Red think that would be okay to catch another trainer's Pokemon? His explanation is basically, where can I catch one?
What's with you? Trying to catch someone else's Pokemon? You're a thief!
What? Thief? No, look, where can I catch a Nidoran then?
Just before entering Viridian City, Blue shows up and he and Red get into a Pokemon battle. And really, it's pretty brutal looking too. Charmander and Squirtle exchange attacks, and Squirtle eventually ends up on top of Charmander and bites its neck as it screams out in pain. Blue tells Red that he should just give up on this Pokedex quest right now, and he leaves. And that's kinda where the episode ends in terms of Pallet Town and Route 1. It goes right into Red meeting Brock and going to Viridian City and Viridian Forest, etc. So, okay, it may not be the entire episode that I can talk about, but certainly has more than most of these places do in this show. Red does return to Pallet Town in File 4 Charizard to show Professor Oak that he completed the Pokedex, just 3 episodes later. Yeah, this show streamlines everything so much. This version of Red is a speedrunner. The movie, I Choose You from 2017 and 2018, is also a retelling of the original anime, and yeah, it's really close to being the exact same thing as Pokemon I Choose You. Not really too much to go over with this one. Professor Oak's lab is also briefly shown in the 8th episode of Pokemon Evolutions, The Discovery, where Green tells Oak that she has failed in completing the Pokedex. As for the manga, I feel like I kinda gotta turn this into a flash round. Pallet Town is shown multiple times, which makes sense, since this is the starting point. The first chapter of the Red, Green, and Blue arc, A Glimpse of the Glow, introduces Red alongside his Poliwhirl, who shows some children how to catch a Pokemon. He then meets Blue, and it ends with him about to go into Professor Oak's lab. In Bulbasaur Come Home, things get crazy though. Oak thinks Red is there to steal his Pokemon, and a bunch of them get loose, and Oak makes Red go track them down. This leads them to Viridian City, where Oak eventually gives his Bulbasaur to Red along with a Pokedex. In Ponyta Tale of the Yellow arc, Oak is in his lab doing a video chat with Misty when Red's Pikachu stumbles into the lab very injured with Red not by his side. In Return to Pallet Town of the Fire Red and Leaf Green arc, Red and Blue, return to Pallet Town. Professor Oak is nowhere to be found though when their Pokemon get attacked by something invisible outside. They find a recording of Professor Oak planning to take away their Pokedexes. The first chapter of Pokemon Pocket Monsters, introducing the Pokemon Clefairy, Red and Green head to Oak's lab to get their first Pokemon, but this is after Red is saved from a Nidoran by a Clefairy. Green chooses Charmander, but Red decides to keep the Clefairy who broke into the lab. In the first chapter of The Electric Tale of Pikachu, Pikachu I See You, a Pikachu is gnawing on the wires inside Ash and his mom's house. Ash plans to go set it free in Viridian Forest, but learns he can get his Pokemon license. Ash tries to battle a Pidgey, probably on Route 1, with his new Pikachu, but Pikachu runs away toward Viridian City. The first chapter of Pokemon Zensho, Prologue, Pallet Town, Satoshi is saved by Oak's Charmander from a flock of Pidgey. At the lab, Satoshi selects Charmander for his starting Pokemon, while Shigeru selects Squirtle. Satoshi then wins their first battle. So obviously there are a lot of similar beats going on here. The protagonist meets up with Professor Oak to obtain some Pokemon, whether it be Charmander, Pikachu, Bulbasaur, or Clefairy. And that's really all Pallet Town was meant to be. The starting point. You and your mom live there, Blue and his sister live there, and Professor Oak's lab is there. The simplest of simple starting towns, and because of that, there is not much to it. Yet somehow I turned that into this now 12-page script. It's called Pallet Town because if you view a color palette, it has all of the colors, just like each town and city you are about to discover. It's more about what's ahead rather than what's here. It has the old story beat of someone trying to leave their small town in order to achieve greatness, like Luke Skywalker on Tatooine or even Harry Potter. Pallet Town, by design, is meant to be very boring, and that's okay, because this game doesn't really pick up until Viridian City, or even the forest, and hey, I already made a video on that, go watch that next. So thanks again for joining me on this little Kantonian journey. I'm sort of running out of places to talk about, so let me know if there's a place I absolutely must discuss next. An enormous, laboratory-sized thank you to all of my generous Patreons at the end here. Don't forget to canonically take Charmander in your next playthrough, even though Bulbasaur is the best and we all know it, and I'll see you all for our next trip. Paraspectre will return.